So in this video I'm going to talk about my perspective on squad meta and what is the most effective tactic available in squad. So I'm going to go straight to the point and say that I don't believe that there's anything such as a universal squad meta. Like there's one tactic or one way of playing that will always be the best way to approach any given situation, no matter what server or rules or team or teammates you have. That's too many variables in squad to say that only one thing will always be the best way to handle the situation. I do believe, however, that there's different metas on different servers, what I call server meta. And what makes up the server meta is the server culture, the server rules, the recurring player or the regular players that keep coming back day after day, or maybe just play exclusively on one server, and the players playing squad lead on that server. So I'm going to try to keep it short about server culture, but it could be unwritten rules, it could be your way of attacking the game or your mindset about the game. Because like-minded people tend to find a server that has players that kind of like the same thing. Is it a competitive server where everything is about winning, or is it more relaxed, or is it more like milsim or whatever? People want to play the game the way they want to play it and find a server that plays it in that kind of way, and that will also shape the meta on the server. Another aspect of something that will shape the server meta and is a part of the server culture are the server rules. If there's any rules against any playstyles or tactics, those playstyles or tactics will not be played and will not be a part of the server meta. Let's take main camping for example. Main camping is a very effective way to have a few guys completely shutting down the enemy team's way of getting out logistics or vehicles, and they have to send a lot of manpower back to clear out those campers, which will give your team an advantage out on the map. But many servers have rules against how close you can be to enemy main, because it might not be so much fun for the enemy team. Another example of a rule that will affect the gameplay and meta on a server is, for example, the locked squad rules that many server has. Depending on how many people that you need to have in a squad before you're allowed to lock it. If you're allowed to lock it with only 2 on a server, for example, you are going to see more small squads, which will turn the gameplay to something else than on a server which you are required to have, for example, 7 or 6 players to lock your squad. But the thing that has the biggest impact on creating the server meta and the server culture are the players, and especially the players that keep coming back to the same server day after day. And I will show you or tell you an example of why. So let's pretend that I'm a new player to squad. I've just started to play and I found a server which has a climate that I like and play with a similar mindset to the game that like I have or like I want to have. And we play Basra for the first time. I'm on the insurgent team and my squad lead tells me that our squad will rush Alcora and the other squads will focus on outskirts while one guy do the backcaps. Plan is to secure outskirts and delay the enemies on Alcora. And we do this and we win because the Americans sends too many people to Alcora, more than they actually need, and they get locked in the fight with our squads, and we feel like we're doing God's work and we're the best squad ever. So after playing on the server for a while and playing on this layer and winning by doing this tactic, I start to believe that it's the meta of this layer as insurgents. If you rush Alcora and hold outskirts, you win every time. And if you don't win, it's because of your teammates and they suck, not because of the weakness in the plan. So this is the server meta as insurgents on this layer. And every new player that start to play on this server learns very quickly that this is how you're supposed to do it if you want to win the game as insurgents. But sooner or later, someone will figure out that Americans are losing not because of a shit team or because of the map is favored towards the insurgents. It's because the server meta for the American team does not work anymore. They cannot rush with 3 squads to Alcora to try to kill that one harassing insurgent squad, because they have no chance to get into outskirts or refinery later on. So one day, someone that has lost so many games on this layer on this server as American tell the team to do something different. We're now gonna send one squad to Alcora, backed by vehicles, to get a soft cap while the rest of the team rushes Refinery to get a fob and a foothold in the town early game, and also block the insurgents from getting their third cap. And they do it, and it works, and now the squad lead that was a part of that game will do it the next time as well, because it works. And when they do it the next game and the next game on this layer, they will spread the knowledge of that this is the way to counter the meta on the insurgent team. And slowly the American meta on that server will change on this layer from the old one to go heavy on Alcora to the new one to go heavy on Refinery. So now this Refinery rush has become the new server meta on the American team. But for how long do you think that will remain the server meta if the insurgent meta changes and someone comes up with the idea to send all the team's ATs and MGs up to Refinery to shoot out all the lodges and blow up all the vehicles, and then they will just build some fobs to defend the outskirts of the town? I don't believe that the American meta of rushing Refinery will stay for very long. So my point is that I don't believe that there is only one way that is the most effective way to play a certain layer or play the game as a whole. It has too many variables. You need to account for what the enemies are doing at all times, and that's the beauty of this game, that it has to do with the coordination and adaptabilities and communication between the squads on your team to counter what the enemies are doing at all times. They make a play and you counter that play and then make a play of your own. So the way I look at it is that the only reason why a plan is working or a tactic is working is because the enemies are allowing it to work. And that's why I have such a hard time discussing what's the most effective tactic available. There's multiple options how to deal with situations all the time, and many of them will work. It all depends on what the enemy team is doing right then and there, and also what squad leads do they have. How quickly can they adapt to what you are doing? You might do the right move at the right time, but then they are very fast to adapt to it and then counter it again, and then your plan is not working anymore. So a lot of players are talking about how fob spamming is the meta of squad right now, so I'm going to talk a little bit about fob spamming as well. So here's one quick example of why fob spamming is such an effective way to win games in squad right now. And it has a lot to do with player mentality and how to get your team to do what you want them to in a very easy way. For example, here we have 13 players on defense. Defense cap is within this yellow circle. And here we have a 9-man squad with a fob attacking it, right? Defenders, first of all, don't know about the fob that it has been built because they are very centralized. But as soon as they know about it, they get in contact, they will push with almost everything they have. And this doesn't have to be the squad leader's call, it's just about player mentality. They've been sitting on defense, waiting for action. They hear shots going off and they're all pushed straight towards it, wanting to get into the fight. And as they fight, they might even, push the attackers back, but they're also then getting further away from their defense cap. And I see this over and over again when I do my Battlecam videos, when I just sit in admin cam watching public games. This lack of discipline, or whatever you want to call it, from the defenders, leaving the gap, and this is when the fob spam takes effect. Now the green team here has a second fob, and they're now not spawning up here anymore, they're spawning down here, and they have a free, easy way into the gap where they can just block the hab quickly, kill all the remaining defenders, and now they're in control of the cap. And another aspect to why this fob spamming is so effective is that it doesn't take much for one squad lead here from green team to do this. You don't have to plan with other squad leads or try to convince them to do something, like you do a diversion from the north and I'll take my squad from the southwest. You just build the first fob on the north side and some squad will spawn there and start pushing the cap. If they get the cap, that's great. If they're not, they're probably gonna get pushed back to the fob, and that's when you have a second fob that they can just switch to and spawn on another side. Now they have lured the enemies out from the cap with a diversion, and they're attacking from the flank. And they don't have to coordinate it, they don't have to plan it or convince other squad. He just built the fobs and it will kind of work itself out. However, as a defending team trying to counter this, it takes much more communication and coordination between the squads to organize who's gonna push out towards the first threat, who's gonna stay and cover the flanks, who's gonna, make sure no one sneaks in and take down the radio, and what squad will possibly fall back from attacking to help on defense and such things. It's just more demanding for the defenders, at least the squad leaders, to organize, while fob spamming, you just build up 2 fobs, 3 fobs, and then it works itself out. So one of the reasons I believe that fob spamming works is because the defenders usually get surprised by that second wave of attackers coming in from a different direction, and they get overrun quickly on the defense gap, and also that the defenders have no idea where the enemies have their fobs, and it takes them too long to actually find them and take them out, and before they can do that, they get overrun on the cap. So everything we do in squad have an upside and a downside to it, strength and weaknesses, right? And this is one way that I like to set up my defense to counter fob spamming teams. So we have this yellow fire team that pushed out far from cap to give us the early warning about where the enemies are coming from. So as soon as they can hear a logi or see it, we can react to it, send people up to meet it head on and slow them down. And this guy will probably surprise the enemies by being this far off cap and can actually attack them before they're ready for it. Might even surprise them as they drive and shoot out the logi, or as they try to build up the fob. Or if you have a mortars on cap, he could just stay cool or let them build the radio and the hab, and then soon as he knows the position of the radio, he can send in mortars if it's out in the open, and you can just mortar down the fob straight away. But let's say we don't have mortars and the guy don't die, and we have this fight going on up here north, like in the first example. We still keep this yellow fire team as scouts for different approaches of enemies, right? And that's the most important thing. We don't want to get surprised. So as soon as they hear another logi or another vehicle, whatever, coming in, they can respond to it, and we immediately need to call another squad telling them that we need help because we're getting pushed from 2 directions and we can't handle it. We need help right now. So at least we have time to respond to it, and we know approximately where this enemy fob will be, and we can get help by vehicles pushing towards it, or mortars, or whatever. We still have these guys on the outside that can do a great job coming in from behind, go for the kills, take down rallies, or spot the fob and have try to block it. Just slow the enemies down until we can get help to deal with the fobs. So this kind of defense setup really works great against teams doing fob spamming. Just try to get fobs up around the cap. You can take them out one by one all the time and just drain the enemy's spawn tickets. But it also have a big weakness, like everything. So one weakness to a setup where you have people around the cap as a perimeter is that you might not have that many players on the cap itself. So if you play against a team that decides to take 2 APCs, so just 1 APC and bum rush the cap, even if you get an early warning from your scouts, they might not have time to fall back to the cap in time. And when you do that, or when you get back to the cap, the enemies have already disembarked with their infantry. They have cleared out the defenders that you have on the cap, and have taken out your fob, and they have revived their down players. So now you have a full squad with vehicles holding the cap as you try to push back in. And at the same time, you have left the perimeter open, so they can bring in a logi, build a fob pretty close to the cap, and reinforce the attack. And they have a fob and you don't, so you will lose it, most likely. And I've seen this happen to other players playing kind of zone defense like I like to do against fob spamming, and it has happened to me as well. And it works if the defenders don't have enough players on cap and doesn't have the positioning on cap to hold it against a rush. So my conclusion to round it up is that I don't think that there's one universal squad meta that will always beat everything else. I do, however, believe in server meta, that the game is being played differently on different servers. I also believe that the core player base of a server are the ones who will create that server meta. And the server meta will always be changing a bit as the core player base picks up new ideas. All plans and tactics have strengths and weaknesses. It's the current situation to which we apply those tactics and plans that will determine if it's a good one or a bad one for that time being. I'm gonna round it up like this. one of the most effective way to play squad is to be a good teammate, to play for and with your team, to communicate, and to be creative when you hit problems, and don't get stuck in the mindset of the current meta. Try to think outside your own box. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions or opinions, please don't hesitate to write them in the comments, and I will try to answer them as well as I can.